Imagine waking up and your body is starving. Your fingers are numb, and the temperature outside has dropped so low that simply walking outdoors for 10 minutes could kill you. Now imagine that this isn't a single bad winter. This is your entire life. Every year, for thousands of years. With no heating, no insulated walls, and nothing standing between you and the cold except whatever you could kill, sow, or burn. This was reality for our ancestors during the Ice Age. And here's the uncomfortable truth. If you were dropped into that world tonight, with everything you currently know, you would probably be dead before the week was over. Not because you aren't intelligent, but because intelligence alone wasn't enough. Survival during the Ice Age required a level of adaptation so extreme that much of it sounds almost impossible today. And to survive it, our ancestors didn't just adapt. In some cases, they did things that sound less like survival and more like horror. Let's set the scene first because most people underestimate just how brutal this period actually was. At the height of the last ice age, around 20,000 years ago, temperatures in many regions were dramatically colder than they are today. Massive ice sheets buried huge portions of North America, Europe, and Asia. Humans, a species that evolved in the warmth of Africa, suddenly found themselves trying to survive in conditions closer to modern-day Siberia than anything our bodies were built for. We had no fur, no blubber, no natural protection against extreme cold. Against Ice Age winters, the human body was completely outmatched. Everything that kept our ancestors alive had to be invented, stolen, or stripped from the bodies of other animals. Which brings us to the first genuinely dark survival strategy: wearing the dead. Early humans quickly learned that their own skin meant almost nothing against Ice Age winters, so they took the skin of other creatures instead. Animal hides became the barrier between a human and freezing to death. And it wasn't just any animal. Evidence suggests humans used bear hides for hundreds of thousands of years. Think about what that actually required. To get a bear hide, you needed to kill or at least scavenge from one of the most dangerous predators in your environment. Then strip it, then wear it, then sleep in it. Your survival depended on wrapping yourself in the skin of something that, under different circumstances, could have killed you instead. For tens of thousands of years, clothing was crude, loose hides draped over the body, effective enough to survive, not effective enough to stay comfortable. And comfort wasn't the issue. Survival was. Because in temperatures this cold, exposed skin doesn't just hurt. It dies. Frostbite would have been a constant threat. Blackened fingers, damaged toes, permanent injuries from a single mistake. There were no hospitals, no antibiotics, no second chances. Then, around 30,000 years ago, a tiny invention changed everything. The needle. A simple tool carved from bone or ivory. Small enough to fit in your hand. Powerful enough to change human history. For the first time, people could sew clothing that actually fit. Instead of draping hides over their bodies, they could create multiple layers that trapped heat and blocked cold air. Clothes made from reindeer, fox, hare, and other animal hides suddenly became far more effective. This may not sound revolutionary, but it probably helped entire populations survive places they otherwise couldn't have inhabited. Yet every piece of clothing still came at a cost. Every coat, every glove, every layer meant another animal had died, and someone had spent hours processing its hide with stone tools while standing in freezing temperatures themselves. Now, here's where it gets darker. The shelters. In many Ice Age landscapes, there weren't always forests for wood or caves for protection. So humans built with the only large material available, bones, specifically mammoth bones. Across parts of Eastern Europe, archaeologists have discovered ancient structures built from mammoth skulls, ribs, tusks, and other skeletal remains. These weren't random piles. They were carefully designed homes, layered with hides and earth to block wind and trap warmth. Humans were literally building their houses out of skeletons. Imagine falling asleep inside a structure made from skulls, ribs, and tusks. The wind howls outside. Snow piles against the walls. And the only thing separating you from freezing to death is the skeleton of an animal that once weighed several tons. For Ice Age humans, that wasn't a nightmare. It was home. But perhaps the darkest theory of all isn't about what our ancestors killed. At a site in Spain known as Cima de los Huesos, the Pit of Bones, researchers found evidence suggesting ancient humans may have endured periods of extreme physiological stress. Some scientists have proposed a controversial possibility that ancient humans may have entered a state resembling hibernation. Not true bear-like hibernation, but a dramatic slowing of activity and metabolism during the harshest periods of winter. The evidence remains debated. Many researchers reject the idea entirely, but the fact that scientists are even discussing it reveals how extreme Ice Age survival may have been. Imagine winters so brutal that simply staying alive required your body to operate differently, to conserve every possible calorie, to endure months of scarcity, just to reach spring. And then there's the most uncomfortable reality of all. Not everyone survived. As the Ice Age continued, our closest relatives, the Neanderthals, disappeared. These were humans who had spent hundreds of thousands of years adapting to cold European climates. In many ways, they were better suited to the cold than we were, yet they vanished. Climate instability, shrinking food supplies, and competition for resources likely pushed their populations beyond recovery. Eventually, an entire branch of humanity disappeared from the Earth. Modern humans survived. Neanderthals didn't. And scientists still debate exactly why. Some point to technology. Others point to social networks. Some point to a combination of many small advantages. Whatever the reason, the outcome was the same. Only one human species walked away. So how did our ancestors make it through conditions that destroyed so many others? The answer wasn't a single invention. It was cooperation. Archaeologists have found tools, ornaments, and materials hundreds of miles from where they originated. Even in some of the harshest environments on Earth, human groups remained connected. Those connections meant trade, information, support, and sometimes survival itself. If one group faced starvation, another might help. In a world this hostile, cooperation wasn't kindness. It was a survival strategy, and it may have been the greatest survival tool humans ever developed. When you put it all together, the picture that emerges isn't really one of clever invention. It's one of desperation disguised as ingenuity, wearing the skins of dangerous predators because your own skin couldn't protect you, building homes from the bones of giants because there was nothing else available, possibly pushing the human body to limits we're still trying to understand, and watching an entire other species of human disappear into the cold. We tend to imagine our ancestors as primitive, but survival at this level required something closer to brutal genius. Every invention, every alliance, every adaptation, built directly on top of starvation, frostbite, and fear. Tonight, when you pull a blanket over yourself and complain that it's cold, remember something. Your ancestors survived winters so brutal that entire human species disappeared in them. They wore the dead, slept inside skeletons, and endured conditions that would kill most modern people in a matter of days. The reason you're warm tonight isn't because humans adapted perfectly to the cold, it's because they refused to surrender to it. And generation after generation, they survived long enough to pass that determination on to you.